What up, everybody? My name is Kyle Hines, and today I'm going to introduce you to a new age of basketball with Simplicity Basket. Today is our very first webinar called Thrive, Not Survive. Basically, what we want to do is we want to talk to young, thriving, up and coming young players that want to go overseas. And I've been lucky and fortunate enough to have two guests with me, two very special guests, two guests that I know really well. First of all, from my home state, the Garden State of South Jersey, from my almost alma mater of Camden Catholic, we have Mr. Kevin Owens, founder of Overseas Famous LLC, also an author, of Overseas Famous, a memoir about his journey, his story overseas, and recently founded the platform Overseas X, where he talks more and goes in depth and more about different issues and the positives and the negatives and different things, the challenges that players go through every single day. So, Kevin, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And we have, my guy, one of my former teammates. I call the best shooter in one of the best shooters in EuroLeague history. Was played pro for 11 years. Played, some of the best clubs in Europe with Red Star and our team, Olympia Milano. He is currently a representative or a manager of Free Game Management, where he advises a lot of clients from the agency side. Not only in the overseas space but also in the college NIL space, and that is Mr. Billy Barron. Billy, thank you for being part of us today.
I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, man. So we want to get started this way. You just left college, and you're looking to go overseas. And usually that first step is, you wake up one day and you suddenly practice is no longer, and you're suddenly on campus. You realize like what's next and what's that next step. And to me, I think the most challenging, and the question I always get is about agents, right? I think, players are always trying to focus on and trying to understand, how do I get an agent? What should I do when I have an agent? What are the questions I should have? So I think both of you gentlemen have a lot of expertise in that. In my career, I was fortunate that I only had two agents. But I went through a long, strenuous process of hiring my first agent. I could tell you a little bit about my story, and I'll let you guys tell your story. I literally, my mom took over my whole process of me being interviewing agents. So my mom would make agents fly to. She had an office in, Kevin, you know this, in Haddonfield, New Jersey. So she would make all these agents fly to. I had maybe six agents, and she would make them fly to Haddonfield, New Jersey, and then she would literally sit there and grill them with questions. She literally Googled the top 20 questions to ask agents, and she would just literally grill them with questions. So for me, I was fortunate because coming out of college, I kind of had I was, I guess you could say, almost like a borderline NBA prospect. So I had agents kind of sought after me, but that's not the case for everybody. So I just want you guys to kind of talk about a little bit about your journey and your experience. First. With agents, and I'll let you go first, Kevin, because I know you had a little bit of a different journey, a different experience, probably than me and Billy.
No.
You there, Kevin? I think we lost you.
Yeah. No, I got
Yep.
it kind of faded. All right. So
Yep.
yeah, my journey was definitely different. I went to Monmouth University, which is a smaller school. Um, when I came out, obviously we went to the tournament. I kind of made a name for myself, but I wasn't on that upper echelon of college prospects. So legit, when the NBA draft and I remember Portsmouth was a big thing back then, and all of that was just not no one was contacting me. I didn't really have an agent. So what I had to do is my brother played pro. So he went to UPenn, had a bigger, they went to the tournament a few times, so he had a bigger name. He ended up getting a good agent, Michael Siegel, out of Philadelphia. So Mike then kind of saw me and was like, "You have a chance, but I need you to go to an exposure camp." So I went to an exposure camp, played really well. There was a G League scout there. I got brought in the door. Ended up getting drafted in like the seventh or eighth round of the G League draft, or D League back then, which, as you know, that doesn't really bode well for you, and ended up making the team. So
Yeah.
my agent was good. He then ended up becoming my agent just because I was successful enough. I kind of earned my way onto his roster. I know when I talk to a lot of agents, they are really big on watching film. A lot of agents are going to try to watch your film, make sure that they know what they're getting. So I think the process is to get an agent. I know it's very difficult because there's so many good agents and there's so many on the downside. So figuring out what you need to do, there's a lot of legwork that you have to do to vet some of these people, because I think there's going to be less agents who are chasing you if you are kind of in that middle of the ground than there are those bottom feeders. They're going to chase you. If you have a lot of bottom feeders chasing you and you know that you kind of went D2 smaller, it's going to be more difficult. So I think it's just making sure you're using your head, betting these people properly, because there's a lot of bad people online who will tell you, "Hey, I have this job for you," and it doesn't really work. So I'm always saying vet who you're doing, because everyone's vetting you. You get vetted in overseas. You get vetted by every team. So make sure you're doing your vetting too. Make sure you're doing your research as well. That's my biggest advice when you're trying to find an agent. Make sure you're doing your due diligence as well.
Yeah, I want to go, and I'll circle back to the vetting things. I think you kind of hit on two things that I want to circle back on. But Billy, you're on the other side now, and you are a agent essentially. So how does it feel to kind of be on the other side, and what are some of the things that you're surprised about now that you're kind of on this other side that you didn't experience as a player?
I definitely think it's a lot different than playing.
Yeah.
Still taking some time to get adjusted to that for sure. But it's a good way for me to stay in the game and kind of do what I love, and that's going to be guiding, the next generation of players. So I'm hoping they're more curious than I was coming out of college. Like
Yeah.
Kevin, I had an older brother who he signed with an agent before me. He was 5 years older than me, so he kind of blazed the trail. So I think it was one of my very first games in college. I had a good game, and all of a sudden there was a guy talking to my mom after the game, and I had like no idea who it was. And then my dad was right there because my dad was my coach, so he was right there too. He's like, "Hey, meet so and so. This is an agent." And I was like I had no, I would, the blinders were on for me, so I had no idea. Even though I was a senior, I probably should have known this type of stuff was coming. But I just went. I really just went with the agent that my brother had at the time,
Hmm.
which was with Wasserman, and I felt like their connections for what I was doing, for like the path that I was going. I kind of felt like I was on that borderline of being in the NBA as well. So I didn't really give it too much thought. They kind of flew me out to LA, wanted to dine me and my mom, my dad. I was kind of like, all right, like they didn't even really have to do that because it was more so. It was kind of like when you're a little brother, you kind of just do what your older brother does, and you don't really ask questions. So um, yeah, that was probably more so for trying to make the NBA, I think.
Hmm.
But I think in all reality, as close as I felt like I was to the NBA, Europe was probably a little bit more realistic for me. I know we'll get into it later, but I just hope guys when they come to this point, they're not just like, oh, it looks like I'm going to Europe. Like, no, like there's so much research that you should do before, on and off the court, reading blogs, watching game film. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can do to prepare yourself for what could possibly come, and that's just you just got to be realistic with it. Um, but I think I should have asked more questions about where for my agency, like where are the players that you have in Europe now? Like specifically, I'm not talking about the Kyle Hines and the centers. Like I'm talking about where are your guards at? Where are
Yeah.
your shooters at? Guys like me, where are your strongest connections at? And then I'm relying more so on them to understand, okay, like a guy like me probably would have profited more than, going to Spain right out of college because of the style of play. They sent me to, I had an offer, kind of felt like I was supposed to go there. They're kind of like the way they delivered it to me. They're like, hey, this is like a no brainer. And I was kind of like, what do you mean by a no brainer? Like, who's it a no brainer for? And I ended up going to the spot where in the first week when I was there, the coach literally, told me through my assistant coach who was translating the conversation that I'm not going to play you much this year because I can't speak English to you. That was my first week. And that was tough.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like there was some dark days that first year where I was like, man, like am I going to actually do this? As much as I love the game, like this was really, really hard mentally, physically, the whole 9 yards. And I stuck it out, but there was a lot of wondering, like, why am I even here? I was the youngest guy on a team full of veterans, and the veterans really didn't give me any the time of day. Really, I was a liability, kind of like I was that dumb, naive American, even though I was trying to be as curious as I possibly could and learn from the vets. But I should have just been more curious and asked questions, and that's what I want to advise my guys. It's like, why here? Like, ask why. Ask, where is this going to get me? What is the plan? And it's important for guys to understand. And now, with the NIL world kind of skewing the market here, they got to understand that the values in Europe are way different than the values in NIL. I mean, EuroLeague money is being passed out in college like it's going out of style. And they got to understand that. So, just letting them know that, and that's where why I wanted to get into the space to kind of relay my experiences to some guys and kind of help them in a way that I felt like I could have used the help, and tell them it's more so like a long-term plan. Like let's not go after. I'm never going to tell you to pass up money, but Kyle, I mean, Kev, you guys both know this. It's like the money you can make in maybe year, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is just way different than the money you're going to make, your first 2 years. So just giving guys an understanding of that too, and making sure they're asking all the right questions that they need to.
Yeah, I think that, and I want to go back to what you said. I think it's an important thing to highlight. Be curious and ask questions. And I think that's an important thing. So that young players should do. They should ask a lot of questions, and they should be very curious, because I think if you ask, the more questions you ask, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more success you're going to have moving forward. So I want to go back to the process. So for people that don't necessarily know the process and why agent is important, your agent basically is your representative to these teams across overseas. And how it usually works is you hire an American agent. Most of us, when you leave the NCAA, you will hire an American agent. Usually that American agent has a partner somewhere in Europe, whether it's in Spain. If they're marketing you in Spain, they usually have a Spanish partner. If they market you in Germany, they usually have a German partner. This German partner then takes your name and then markets you to the teams inside that market. And then usually how it goes is that the American agent and the European agent will split the commission 50-50. And moving forward, that's how you kind of get to overseas. So I want to start off by, first of all, when you go through the process, the questions that you should ask. I think number one question I would tell guys to ask, first of all, are you FIBA licensed? I think that's a big one. Because I think a lot of times guys will talk to agents and they don't necessarily understand that, like, they're not even necessarily licensed to be an agent. They're just working through somebody else, an intermediary through somebody else, or a partner through somebody else. And a lot of times, that'll necessarily kind of hurt them in the long run, that they'll kind of make their promise or sign to this person or make promise to this person. And they don't necessarily know that this person is not necessarily able or capable of working FIBA. Because what happens if you go to a country, let's say, for example, you go to Spain and your guy is not FIBA licensed, and you're calling him, asking him, something happened or going through some problems, and he has nothing he can do. He will have to work through somebody else. So you want to try to ask, first of all, if somebody's FIBA licensed. Second of all, the second question I would say ask, and like I said, you guys can interject at any point, but the second question I would ask, I would say, how many clients do you have, right? How many clients do you have? What size agency you have? What size agency are you? Are you a boutique agency? Are you a larger firm? Are you like Wasserman, where you're a larger agency that services a lot of clients from NBA to EuroLeague and so on and so forth? Or are you a boutique agency, maybe only has 15 to 20 clients? And then I will talk, and as Kevin, as Billy both mentioned, I would ask, where are most of your clients signed at? And I think that is a big indication of where that agent has his best relationships and his best network at. If you're talking to an agent and he mostly deals with clients in South America or Mexico or Asia, but you want to go to Europe, then in my opinion, I wouldn't advise you to sign with that agent. As much as he's probably telling you and saying, hey, I have this connection in Europe, I can do this in Europe. But he doesn't have any European clients. He's mostly in Asia, mostly in South America, and vice versa. If you're trying to find maybe a more global reach, and maybe you want to try to go all over a global net, then I would say I would suggest try to hire an agent or try to be with the agency that has that net. if you say like I want to go play in Germany or if I want to go play in Spain, do you want to try to have an agency that has players in that agency? And then lastly, I think and we can go back and I'll ask you guys to any other questions that you think that would be necessary. But I think the biggest one is, what is your plan for me? Because I think a lot of people don't understand, and like a lot of players don't understand, your agent is an extension of you, but your agent also works for you, right? So I think you have to talk to him and talk to them, I should say, about what are your plans for me? What are your plans for my career? Where do you see me in 4 to 5 years? And see if those plans align with your plans. And you both have to kind of be realistic to each other. So to me, those are like always the 4 or 5 questions that like I would highlight and I would say. So, and I will allow you guys to kind of add more if you kind of see or expand on some of those questions that I talked about.
No, like I love the like you said, a lot of the questions, because the thing about like overseas, well, first you kind of see between the three of us, just there's different varying ways that we kind of became represented. So we have like you guys, like people were coming and flying in. Billy, you're flown out. My agent was just kind of like, I guess, like after. Come on. So like we all have these different varying things, which is just shows there's so many different ways to get in here, like exposure camps, agencies. So I like that. And in terms of the questions, you're right. Like and it's something I haven't really like thought too in depth of is your agent represents a lot of, some agents are really good in certain spaces, and you see that like some players fit certain areas. Like you look at the guys who stay in Europe and they're in Europe their whole lives. I like was in Europe, then I went to Australia, then I was in South Korea. So like you have the guys that almost make those those connections over there, and then you start going there. So I think there's a lot of agents. There's the European branch that's going to get you into, maybe you're going to open. I always say that you're going to open the door in low level Australia, low level New Zealand, Cyprus, those different areas, and then it's just based on where you go from there. But I do think that that's something interesting to think about when you're looking at your agent. Where do you want to play? What style of play do you fit in? Because if you fit in more like the fast paced Australia, Asia, or are you kind of like shooter, like gritty, taking it, full complete player, you play defense, then you're in Europe. So I think that's a big thing too. When you pick your representation, where do you want to play? Where are these players located? Because if you want to fill these roles, that's probably the area you want to go. So are they placing you in a place where it's going to help your game, or are they placing you in a place that's not really your specific style? If that makes sense.
And then I would just say, like, again, harping on the point of like, take ownership of your career, do your research prior. Like, I was watching, I don't know how many guys are watching Vasilis Spanoulis play when they were in college, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was doing that. And yes, I know I was fortunate. I had another brother, right? But I knew who Olympiacos was. I knew who Panathinaikos was. I knew that Europe was probably the most respected league. The EuroLeague was the most respected league outside of the NBA. I knew South America wasn't an option for me. Asia wasn't an option for me. Wherever else, like I was going to Europe, and the G League was not an option for me either. So like, as much as I was naive to the agent space, to like who was going to represent me early on in my career, I still had an idea of like, all right, NBA is obviously option A, but that's a dream. Like, what is more realistic? What's option B? And it was Europe. Obviously, following all my brother's games and watching him, and he played in Spain, he played in Turkey, he played Russia, all over the place. I saw how different Italy was. I saw how different Turkey was in the style that they played in Spain. So it's really important to know all those things, so that when you do talk to an agent, you kind of already, exactly what to look for, what questions to ask, and then also ask other players. Like, this is the point of being curious. Ask other players about their stories. Players will open up about everything. Everyone's an open book. No one's hiding anything. So that's like invaluable information that you can get, especially from someone. Let's just say you're coming out of college. Someone that's played 5, 6 years overseas. I mean, they got a whole book full of stories, and ask those guys, because it's the best way to learn.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback off of that. I was going to say that like you guys were both fortunate that you had older brothers, right? Mm-hmm. That like you could kind of like watch and you kind of like learn your lesson from them. And then like for me, like I was just curious. So like anytime like I knew that somebody went overseas, I would just ask them about their experience. What'd you do here? What'd you do there? And I think that is so invaluable because like you said before, players aren't going to lie. Like players aren't going to sugarcoat. If there's a player that had a bad experience, I think they're going to tell you about it. If the player had a good experience, they're going to tell you about it. If the player had an indifferent experience, they're going to tell you about it. But I think the more experiences, the more research that you gather, then I think you'll be able to feel more comfortable about your decision and where you're going. So I think that's I think right there what you said before, I think is probably the biggest advice I would have for players. Speak to other players. There's players from your university, players that you work out with, people that you know. The world right now is very connected, so you can reach out to people on Instagram, you can reach out to people on different platforms, and get connected to them and ask questions. And like I said, 9 times out of 10, they know they're going to respond. And then once you respond, they're going to allow you to understand, have a better understanding, what's going on. I want to also talk about, and Kevin, you talked about it as a question that I think I get a lot, and I think a lot of people get a lot, is the exposure camps.
Mm-hmm.
What makes, just coming from Vegas, I was in Vegas and there was like 55 different exposure camps, and there was all these people flying into this camp and that camp, and paying this type of money for this and paying this type of money for that. And I was going to ask, in your experience, how can somebody tell if an exposure camp is legit or if it's just I guess you could say, a money making opportunity for an agent or for a person?
I would say honestly, there's always an agency behind an exposure camp. Someone is linked up with this. So I always look at like, who is the agent representing people from this camp? Who is the agent who's bringing in all of their players? And I always look at that. If there's an agency behind it and that agency is kind of not normal, I'd probably advise against it. I mean, Kyle, you just said like the amount of people I had who were like, "Hey, do you want to be involved in some exposure camp in Vegas? Like, just come out and we'll." And it was like, I can't. Like, what do you mean, just come out? Like, I need to know, are these people getting jobs? Like, what are we doing? Because it's not like everyone just wants to kind of slap something on there, and I think that's the new thing. That's like overseas basketball, because we're going to see it again in August, the late August into September, with FIBA starting up, and you have all of these players. It's the Joker. Everyone is starting to make a name for themselves in the NBA, so eyes are starting to gravitate towards overseas.
Yep.
So guys are more inclined to be like, what's going on over there? And like we said, this is why something like this is so important, because we know it's the Wild West. Like, once you go over there, there's a lot of rules, but each rule kind of doesn't fit for each league. So there's just so much chaos. So when you look at those things, like, you have to start really honing in on what's actually real and what's not. So the exposure camps, I would say I would look for an agent that's reputable. I would do the same thing like you talked about, Kyle. See what other players are listed. If there's some people you're like, okay, they're good. That's what you want. And I think that was the big, like, figure out what scouts are going, because everyone can say European scout. That's great. That could mean a guy like my father-in-law could be a European scout because he's from Greece, like, because he has an accent. Like, I could make that. No one knows. Like, we have no idea. So like, there's so much dishonesty. So I always try to look at the players, look at the agents, look at the teams represented. If they just say European scouts or G League scouts, like, specifically give me names, like who's there. And again, it's all about due diligence, which it's tough. You're in this world, it's very, very not clear where everything is, but if you can find someone who's reputable and you can start doing your research, I think you'll be okay. Sorry, that was a long-winded. Sorry, Billy.
No, I'm always a little skeptical of those as well. Like, if you feel like that is really your only option in getting a job, I'd say, okay, like, do your due diligence and go. But for the most part, like, I think you got to go with the teams who have done their homework over your senior year in college, whatever year it is in college. Those are the teams that have circled you. They've watched extensive film. You're not going somewhere just to play with random guys, go up and down, and then they're going to take a flyer on you. Like, now you're really taking a chance, or they go and they watch you do a one-on-one workout. Like, we all look good in one-on-one workouts. What happens when you got to play pick and roll and they're like, oh shit, I didn't know, I didn't know he couldn't read a pick and roll. So based on just pure basketball, skeptical, just because, if there's a team that has you circled and they're calling you right after, And like I said, don't let the NIL market skew, your judgment of what's a good offer in Europe. If it's, $20,000 and this team has circled you and they want you, like don't think you can go and get $50,000. Take that offer because they've done their research and you guys know the most important thing is who wants me from the club? Does the coach
Yep.
want me? Or does the GM want me? Because that team that I went to that I told the story before, the coach didn't want me, couldn't even speak to me. So if the coach wants you, that's saying something, right? So, and you guys know how important a good coach is for your career in Europe. So that's my take on it.
Yeah,
I
well,
was
and then we'll get to go ahead, Kevin. Sorry about that.
No, I was gonna say just like be like last thing, like be realistic. I think that's a
Yes.
huge thing. Be realistic with yourself. Like you
Yeah.
should know where you are as a player. I don't care how big of an ego you have. We all know where we are. We all know where we stand. We played college basketball. So if you're kind of coming into this space and you're looking for an agent and something looks too good to be true, be real with yourself and ask yourself, is it? Because it probably is. If you're not a really big name and someone's offering you like a spot on like Olympiacos, like no, that doesn't happen to a rookie.
Yeah.
So move on. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like so. No, that's what I was gonna say. Like the self awareness part too. Like like just understanding who you are. But a lot of that is like the agents will sell you a dream. Sometimes agents will sell you a dream just to, but you have to sign with the agent because the agent's main job is to put you in the best situation possible. Because if they put you in the best situation possible, that's how they get paid. Some agents kind of sometimes lose sight of that. They're just like, I just want to have the biggest client roster possible, and then from there I'm going to try to work magic and try to get guys. But as we talked about before, I think it's a big thing about doing your research, being self-aware, ask other players, and ask the right questions. So I think that's a big thing. Now I want to move on to the agent agreements, and I think it's something that I want to ask you guys about. I think it's a question that a lot of guys get into, sometimes getting stuck into bad contracts or bad situations with agents and not having the ability to get out of contracts because they have no idea what's going on. They don't know what their legal rights are or what their opportunity is. So I'll start with you, Kevin. Can you kind of just talk about agent agreements and what are some of the things and what are some of I guess you could say the misnomers about agent agreements and what is kind of like the proper way to sign an agent agreement?
No, absolutely. So, like we said, we've talked about scammers so many times. There's so many people who are going to try to take we talked about like NIL and things like that. They want to take your name, image, and likeness, but are they looking out for your best interest? So whenever I like I'm not like huge in this, but if I talk to an agent or a player, and they talk about their contract, like there's certain things that I'm just like, okay, double check these different things in your agent contract. Like double check because again, like what is the we talked about boutique versus full service agencies. What are they providing for you outside of getting you a job? Are they providing any other resources? Are they connected well with certain spaces? I would also there's a lot of like, hey, if I don't get you a job, I've seen like if I can't get you a job after 6 months, now we can renegotiate everything. And I've seen those kind of fillers put in. That's like a huge red flag. Like if
Yeah.
someone comes up and is just like, if I can't get you a job in six months, and I think it comes back to a real agent scouts you out. They know who you are. They want you more than you want them. So when you're looking for an agent, most of the time a good agent will scout you out. If you are good enough to be a high level overseas athlete, a good agent will scout you out. But if you have not found that, or your good agent is not really getting the job done, that's where it starts getting a little hectic, and you start kind of figuring out, hey, should I stay with my agent? Should I go to this one? So those are crazy. I was lucky enough to only have one agent. I know a lot of guys switch around, and my agent got me the jobs. He's okay. I can't say that, but he wasn't great off the court. But he got me jobs that I probably did not deserve to get. I mean, I was good, but like he came in, and I was in the G League. But when he came in with like Cairns, Australia, like paradise, I was like, really? All right, let's go. And it was just so I know it's tough, and I would also say it's tough to say be patient, especially when you have like a 10-year window.
Yeah.
But that's a big thing too. Just take a look through, vet your agent, but also be patient. Like see what your agent is offering you. If they're offering you the all the things that you know make sense, then go. But if there's a lot of red flags in there, I would say move on. And Billy, you can answer this better because you kind of are in that space now.
Yeah, well, I would say like from some of the stories also that I heard before getting into this space, it's like, what are you on the hook for if you terminate the contract, right? Some agents circle back on pre-draft costs,
Yep.
and they'll say, hey, pony up this money, and it's a big number. Usually, it's a really big number, and you're not expecting that. Other times when you switch agents, you got to look at, do you owe the agent, like if you go with another one, do you owe this agent a portion of your next contract? That's something that could possibly happen. And if you're going to make the move to another agent, do you have to do it by a specific date? I know I've seen agreements where you got to do it before January 1st of the next year. So if you sign a contract that following year, that agent deserves a portion of it. And I've seen in some cases where the agent is expecting money for the next several years. So because they feel like if they work with you for so many years, let's say they work with you for 3 years, they expect 3 years of commission if you terminate the deal. So like that's something big that I think you need to really like that's something big you really need to look at and like understand that like if this thing doesn't work out, um, what am I on the hook for?
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I would say that like the number one thing I would look at is, and I don't necessarily think you want to think about this way, but the advice I always got is like, when you get on a plane, the first thing they tell you is the exits, right? So when you get an agreement, you should always understand, what's my way to get out of the agreement. So I think as a young client, and like I said, I didn't understand this as a young athlete, you always have to understand if something does go wrong and it does go left, what is my way out? And I think that's one of the first questions you have to ask. Second, and I'll go back to the pre-draft costs. Nothing is for free. Nothing is for free. And I think in this world, I think sometimes young players is like, oh, like you said, like, oh, he's taking me here, we're doing this, we're going here, they're going to pay for this, they're going to pay for that. Oh, they're going to pay a flight for, my girlfriend or for my mother to come do this, or they would do that. Like nothing is for free. So, I would say always make sure that if you do that, always make sure that you either write down those costs, or write down, or ask for a receipt, or ask for an invoice for those costs, so that if it does circle back, or also, like I said, just make sure you just kind of pay attention to those things, because as Billy said, when things do go left, that's all of a sudden when you get a bill in the mail and you'd be like, oh, I thought the ticket to the baseball game was free, or I thought this was free, or I thought that was free, and I thought he was just being kind. So I think, and in the same token, what we said before, I think a big thing is do your research. Do your research. Ask other players about their agreements. Ask other players about the things that they have signed. Ask other players, hey, can you share agreement? Hey, was this in your agreement? And in worst case scenario, if you really need to, get a lawyer. Get a lawyer that can can vet and can read and kind of break down some of the jargon and break down some of the things that you don't necessarily understand, because those are the most important things. So now we're gonna get into the important topic. You got an agent. Your agent calls you, and he tells you that I got X team that's going to sign you for X amount of money. The contract comes in the mail. I'm old enough, and I'm sure Kevin's old enough, that I had to fax my first contract. Yeah. I had to go to Staples and also Office Max, and once I got my contract, I had to go and fax my first contract. Versus now, everything is DocuSign and everything is quick. Now, I want to ask you guys. First of all, I mean, it's an incredible experience when you sign that first contract, right? Because that's the first time that no matter the amount, no matter whatever it is, it's the first time that you're considered a professional player, something that you've been working on a whole entire life. But during all that jubilation and all that excitement, sometimes we forget that we need to sometimes read the fine line and kind of read the things that are inside. Sometimes that team will just fax you that contract or print you that contract, send you that DocuSign, and you're just pressing the phone right away, signing it without necessarily kind of vetting it or kind of going over it with your agent or somebody else. So I want to talk to you guys about that. What are some things that should be included in a standard contract for an overseas basketball player? The NBA and the G League is very different. Just for people that don't know, the NBA and the G League, there's a standard contract that everybody has to sign. In your league now, there is also a standard contract that you have to sign, but there are other countries and other places that you have to play. So I just want to talk about that. What are the things that should be included in the contract? You can start, Kevin.
So yeah, the when you look at the standard contract, I think obviously a flight. The flight's a big thing. There's some guys I've never heard of this, and this is where I always look at the like varying levels of overseas basketball, because there's some guys who are getting paid like $500 a month and not able to that no one's paying for their flight, and I'm like, how are you
Yeah.
doing this? Like, this is crazy. So I definitely, the flight, um, as you start going, like obviously making sure, how are they depositing the money? That's a big thing as well. There's so many different ways to do it. Are they depositing it with currencies already, all those currencies exchanged, taken out and deposited directly in your American bank account? Are you setting up a foreign bank account? Things like that. I also, are they going to fly family members over? That was a big one. Are they going to give you a car? And then just looking at the other things, like, is your apartment furnished? Are they paying for? Are you getting food included at all? What are the bonuses? The bonuses were my favorite aspect of anything. I remember when I was in New Zealand, we had a double bonus, and I was
Yeah.
playing for Wellington. And do you guys remember Nick Horvath played at Duke?
Yeah.
So Nick and I
A
both played.
double,
Oh
a
yeah,
double bonus. Every time you got a
all
double
we had to
double, you
get
got a
was
bonus.
double. So legitimately, Nick and I would be fighting each other for rebounds. Like, we would get like 20, like 40 rebounds between the two of us, 20 and 20, just so we can get a bonus. So I always think, like, figure out what you're good at and see if they can get that into a bonus. Like, if you're a good shooter, how many, if I hit 5 threes, give me this. If I get a double, that 5 threes is a lot harder than double. Sorry. But those are just kind of little things that I think of that can be included into the contract, just like off the court living, and then some of the bonuses and things like that for on the court living. Also, check out your injury stuff. I know when I was in Korea, I got injured. They didn't uphold the contract, so I know it's tough because I look at it too as, are these contracts going to be upheld? And that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, that's so those are some of the things I would look at.
I think you bring up a good point with the way they deposit the money too. So
Yeah.
my second year, I'm playing, and the team, my contract was in dollars, but they would send it through euros through their bank account to mine. So if I was supposed to get X amount of dollars, it was like 1 or 2% lower than that.
Yeah.
And first couple months, I'm like, hey, what's going on? But I'm like, I'm a little pissed off. And then like the third or fourth month, it was like a little great, but it was always like a very random number that was taken out. I didn't realize that Bank of America had to take a fee for
Yep.
converting the money. Meanwhile, I'm losing on my coach at midcourt, thinking he's doing something to me. So later, to come to find out, I did some research. There was this app called TransferWise that if you put your euros in there, they actually, you should look it up. It's really really cool. But like it's like a tenth of what it's like a fraction of what the bank would take. So if you're sending over $20,000, let's say Bank of America, if it hits your account, it'd be 19,100 something. TransferWise would be like 19,000. It takes like $25 really. And you can, if you kind of were really bored like I was, and you were into like trying to nickel and dime some things, you look at the rate, and when the rate spikes for a second, you send the money, and you maybe earn a couple $100 just to entertain yourself. So was that, and then the cut clause. I mean, are they cutting you for bad performance? Are they cutting you for injury? Are they still on the hook to pay you? Things like that. Insurance is a big thing. How what's everything that's covered? I know for the most part, I don't know if dental. I think dental was always the one that wasn't covered. I don't know, Kyle, in your experience, mine was like kind of 50-50 with dental. That was really the only thing I think that wasn't covered in 50% of the cases. But medical wise, like my last year, I had to get surgery, and trying to figure out, I knew kind of what the bill was going to be back home for the surgery. And the club said at first, hey, we're not going to cover that expense if I were to do it back home. And so they're like, we'll cover it here. And I ended up doing it there, and it was a horrible decision. But come to find out that they could have covered 80% of the cost at America. That was really after the fact. So after the damage was done. So little things like that go a very far way.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of do the overview. I think that first of all, I would make sure that the proper dollar amount that you're going to get paid is on there, because your agent will tell you one thing and the club may do something different, or there's there has been not in some of the better markets, but there has been markets where your agent will tell you one thing and then another number be on the contract. That's because the agent is taking money off the top, or or somebody's taking money off the top. So I would say make sure you understand that. I will also say the payment schedule. Make sure you confirm the payment schedule, because every different country pays differently. Some countries pay monthly. Some countries pay multiple times a month. Some countries pay every other month. Some countries they'll make you sign two different contracts. You'll sign like an image contract, or where you'll get a certain amount of money and then you'll get a certain money standard. Some countries will make you, as Billy said, that they'll make you have a bank account within the country. I think when I was in Germany, in Germany and Russia, like we had to have a bank account in the country to make sure that we wired our money. So it's like, who has access to that account, and are you able to have, access to that account, versus when we were in Italy, we didn't necessarily need to have a bank account. So some countries are different. Also, like I said before, I think when I was in Germany at the time, they actually sent part of my contract to my agent, and then my agent had to send it to me. Based off, it was almost like, it wasn't like an image, it was almost like a finder's fee. So I would try to, like I said, you have to understand the dynamics of the payments, because certain countries, certain places pay differently. Certain places may give you a bag of cash, like you.
there.
Yeah, certain players so you just be walking in, they may just have you an envelope of cash. So understanding that, I think the flights, like you said, are a big thing. Understanding the flights and making sure that's covered. Understanding all the things that are the off the court stuff, the apartments, and that's something that we can also talk about too. There's some things that are living standard. I'll talk about that. I'll kind of go back to that. But there's some things that are a living standard that we're used to in the USA that aren't necessarily a living standard in Europe and some of the other countries. And I think if you do want to have that, or if you do want to have those things, then I think that you need to put those in your contract. But I'll circle back to that. Some of the other things I would say is late payments. I think there's a clause, like understanding the clause for late payments, right? There are countries that are notorious for being late, and have a reputation for being late. Some teams that have a reputation for being late. Yet again, and we'll talk about this before the next topic, about doing your research. But understanding what happens, if a team is 45 or 60 days late. What are your options at that point? Are you able to walk away from the contract? Are you able to do different things? So I think understanding that part. And then for the most part, like I said before, I think is part of having a good agent is to also understand and have your agent kind of walk you through these different things that are in a contract before you sign a contract. And we talked about before, and I think it's probably the main topic of our conversation, is be curious and don't be afraid to ask questions. So I would have, before you get all excited, before you go popping the champagne, before you get excited about you before becoming a professional, sit down with your agent and talk to your agent and literally go through step by step of the contract. So that way, moving forward, when you do sign these contracts, you can possibly play in 15 years and play in 15 different countries from 15 different teams. Every contract can possibly be different. But the more you know and the more questions you ask, you can kind of pick up some of the red flags yourself. You kind of understand some of that stuff yourself as well. So I will say that. Now I want to circle back to the apartment, to the living, to the off the court stuff. That's a lot of times in the contract. Some of the things that I didn't realize my first year going overseas, I went to Italy, was the washer and dryer situation. Like, I would think that, like, coming from it's not even a question you ask, right? It was like, coming from the States, a washer and dryer a lot of times are standard, right? That's just like what happens in the house. But this in Europe, you may have one or the other, or sometimes neither, right? So just want to talk about different things about that. Like some of the instances that you guys have been in and some of the places that you've been in, or some of the stories you have heard is guys going to places and not having their apartment live up to the standard that they want to have it, because they didn't know certain things were in their contract. So Kevin, you can start.
Now the air conditioning, that was always one that I was
Yeah.
like, do they have air for the Americans? That was always what I asked. I'm like, do they have an air
Yeah.
conditioner? Because when I went to Poland, they did not, and I just happened to get lucky. I went in the end of August, and it was just cold, so I wasn't so bad. But I know guys who and girls who've dealt with the very hot summers in Europe and 95 degrees, just sweating it out every single night. And it's like, while it shouldn't be a big deal, but if you're so used to, I mean, and it sounds like spoiled and entitled, but like we're just used to sleeping or something in one way. So when you're not sleeping and you're brought over to perform a task that requires you to sleep fully, it's something that I always think like, hey, make sure that you have some of these little amenities so that these guys actually can maintain comfort. A driver or car is good.
Yeah.
That's one.
I was gonna mention that too about the
Yeah.
car. I think sometimes people get surprised about the manual transmission in certain countries and certain places.
Hmm.
So I would say, I mean, now it's not as much, but I would say that is something that like you get there and it's like you get there and like you got to drive a stick and you're like I never drove a stick in my life. So I was like that's something that like you said that you can mention or put in your contract that like I need to have a standard automatic car. But continue, you can continue.
No, yeah, the standard. I mean, I had a, I was, I never drove a stick until I went to Europe, and then
Yeah,
stalled out often. So, yeah, so I definitely think the apartment, obviously, like do they have obviously most have what you need. I've never really been in a situation where I've gone somewhere and there wasn't a kitchen that had the things that I needed, or a bathroom, or like a bedroom or something like that. Are you living alone? That was one. When I went to South Korea, we had a huge apartment, but it was me and the other American lived in that apartment together. So just little things like that, because I've heard stories of guys having roommates. So like little things that would throw you off enough when you get there to be like, oh, this is gonna suck.
yeah,
So I think
Hmm.
that was a bit. Those are some big ones.
I think living alone for sure. Just had a case of a client of mine where that's what they wanted to offer is he had to share a place, and I'm like, listen, like I know maybe he's a rookie, he doesn't have the leverage an 8 year vet does in Europe, but that's a no, you can't do that one. You can't. We're not living with anyone. And then like a mattress, I had a problem a couple years with a bad mattress. So if I'm
yeah,
waking up and I can't even put my socks on because my back is so tight, well then we got a problem. Now you're affecting my performance. So that's like something I'm willing to fight. But for the most part, other than that, like I mean, it's definitely not ideal. It's a culture shock, like the way you got to live when you come over here from America. We have everything, and then you go there and you're in these tiny apartments. You have a very tiny bedroom. I mean, maybe the Wi-Fi is not that great. The water pressure in the shower is horrendous. No dryer. Only one stove works. Stuff like that. But like, I hate to say it, you just get used to it. You kind of get
yeah,
up.
Yeah.
Your routine starts to slowly develop, and it just becomes the new norm,
Mhm.
and it's temporary. I mean, 9, 10 months can seem like a long time when you're in it, but overall, it's a temporary thing. So you got to pick and really, it's like I kind of want to get back to the other points. Like you want to pick and choose your battles because
absolutely.
I know everyone wants to play in Europe, but like you gotta understand, and like this is me as an agent saying it, it's like there's only so much leverage like a rookie has, right? You guys know it's like when you work your way up the ranks, you have much more leverage. There's more battles you can fight. There's more things you can put in your contract. But when you're coming out of college, they might be looking at 10 guys for that spot. But like when you're year 8, 9, 10, there's only literally like 2 or 3 guys that have your value that have done what you've done. Now you feel more comfortable fighting different types of battles. So, um, but yeah, I would say just it's a culture shock. We can't sugarcoat it. It's a big
Yeah,
culture shock. You just gotta deal with it, really.
yeah. I would say as well like the one of the cool things is it's a grind. Like and I think you appreciate the grind. I think you kind of appreciate the grind, and as you kind of grow, and I think as you kind as continue on. Once you kind of enter your career, you appreciate like the moments where you were, doing different things. And like you say, you were sleeping on the bad mattress, or you didn't have the washer and dryer, you didn't have those different things. Like the story for me was like when my brother came, my little brother came on a tryout to Pedestetti in Greece, and the reason why he was able to get on the team because they didn't want to pay for his housing. So for a whole 10 months, yeah, it's crazy, right? They were like, "We don't have to pay for your housing." Bet. So for a whole 10 months, they didn't want to pay for his housing and for his car, but he was looking for an opportunity to get his foot in the door. So for the whole year, he slept on my couch, and he was just like I'm cool, like I'm happy, like just sleeping on the couch. But like that's just part of the grind. Like sometimes you may have to have a roommate, or you may have to share a car. You may have to do these different things, like you said in the beginning. But the beauty of overseas basketball is that you can go from 1 year of making, let's just say, I don't know, 1,000 a month, and then 3-4 years later making 10,000 a month, because of the grind and because you have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, like I said, like I would say that embrace the journey, embrace the grind. And sometimes, like as Billy said, you can't necessarily, you got to pick your battles, but you also have to be open minded and understanding what you're going into. I think that's the biggest thing as far as like what we're trying to do with this webinar is to kind of give you some of the answers before you take the test. Because if you're walking in there for the first time and you're like, oh man, like I don't have a washer and dryer, or I'm sitting here with a roommate or something like that, then I think like it harpers it harps and it dims your season, it dims your expectations. But if you're coming there with those expectations, then I think it helps you, moving forward, kind of going into it.
And I've seen guys like get worked up over the smallest things like that, and you're just like, my own teammates, and I can't really say it, but I'm like, dude, like just suck it up. Like I mean, don't let it affect your job. Like I know it's not America. I got it. We're in Lithuania. I'm here with you. You know what I mean? But it's like this is what it is, right? So I would say just yeah, it's easier said than done, but you just pick and choose your battles and be smart about it. And ultimately, don't let the main thing, don't let it affect the main thing.
And like you said,
Absolutely.
that was like amazing because there's the best stories are going to come from the shit that was the worst. Like the best aspects of overseas that you're going to tell your friends about when you come home is going to be there's like I walked into a room and there's someone else sleeping, and you're just like, what is, because it makes you it makes you, I think like the biggest thing that we have as overseas athletes is we're so adaptable. That's what makes us great. That's what makes us such good employees post career. It makes us such good athletes, and I think that adaptability, like we come in and we're like, it's not going to be fun, it's not going to be great every single second, but this is freaking awesome. Like we're doing something. We're like backpacking through Europe, and someone's paying us to do that. Whatever shit I encounter, I'm dealing with it. Like I just dealt with it. We're adaptable. Just keep pushing through, and I think that makes you more employable as an athlete too. If you're not
Absolutely.
at anything, everyone's like, all right, this guy will just do whatever we ask him to do, which is not always the right. I get where that's going, but I'm just saying, like, I think just being adaptable, being able to understand that it's only going to have only 10 months, you'll get through it, and it's going to be an amazing story.
Absolutely. I mean, and we'll kind of harp on that a little bit later when we talk about some of the things, that the tips that we would kind of give guys, to help their overseas career, right, and to have success. I think that kind of taking away that stigma of already being that American, because a lot of times when you come in as an American, you already have that stereotype, like he's going to complain, he's going to whine, he's going to do all this different types. So sometimes you got to kind of do the opposite, and if you do the opposite, then they're willing to give you more. Sometimes they're like, oh well, we're willing to help you out a little bit more and willing to do different things. But I want to move forward, talking about now that you signed this contract and you're on the verge of going overseas. What should you expect? What should these players expect? Especially in their first couple of years. I would say one of the things I would try to, the advice I would give is, before you go overseas, I would say reach out to some of your teammates, because a lot of times it's public. You see on social media who is signed, who signed where, who your teammates are, your domestic teammates, or your foreigner teammates. So I would say before you even go, I would say reach out to them. Reach out to them, talk to them, try to build a relationship, try to build a rapport beforehand, so that way when you guys get there, you guys can already have a relationship with each other. Second, I would say try to build a relationship with the coach, the GM, the people that are there already. So as Billy said, like sometimes you may get a situation where the coach or the GM, or maybe the GM signs you, maybe the coach has nothing to want to do with you. But I think a lot of times, like, you're able to kind of talk to them and build a relationship and build a rapport with them beforehand. I think that'll kind of help you kind of taper your expectations moving forward. What your first couple months are going to be like overseas. So I'm gonna jump to you, Kevin, first, and we're just going to kind of go over a brief overview about your first time going overseas. What did you pack, and how do you, like I said, I think like you're never necessarily ready about trying to pack and trying to, understand what you need to do for a 10-month season. So what did you pack, and what were your kind of your thoughts and your expectations moving forward?
Well, the toughest thing is understanding that you're not going to be as stylish as you want to be, because you can't possibly do it. Like, you can't. It's physically impossible to bring everything over to like have a perfect fit every single game. So you're just going to have to do what you got to do. So I always looked at, okay, what am I packing? Like, am I packing some things that remind me of home? Like, I would always bring like some American snacks, like things that would last a little bit, things in a packet. That would last, that would remind me of home and kind of bring like alleviate some of that culture shock that you get when you get there. Get little reminders of home. Like I said, I mean, you're going for a job, so that is my biggest. What you're packing is for your job. So like the most part of your suitcase has to be stuff that you are going to get you more successful at your job. Well, granted, like if the PS5's not fitting, someone can bring it over later. Someone can ship it. But if you're replacing like something that's going to help you keep this job for a place, like you got to start prioritizing your space, because you only have so much space. And I mean, I've seen these luggage things where there's all these spaces, but I definitely think prioritizing basketball rather than off the court at first, because you're going to be able to get things sent to you. Amazon is crazy. I know, and this is another crazy thing, because I never really lived in the Amazon era. My last year, my friend was like, "You should get on this Twitter," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's a good idea." Like, that's how. So like when I'm looking at like Amazon, I'm like, man, there's so many cool things that exist now that guys. I mean, I know guys who play overseas. They're like, yeah, my girlfriend shipped it over via Amazon. So I know there's ways to get things. So I would prioritize packing the things that you need to be successful on the court, rather than and then worry about the off the court stuff. But more so when you get there.
And then pertaining to the job, I always pack, like I was very particular about my sneakers. So I would buy like 5 or 6 pairs of like the same exact sneaker. And if I wore orthotics, buy those orthotics, like bring over, whatever sleeves, socks you need, recovery stuff, big into the recovery stuff. Bring that over. If like, if it's between at the time, if it's between the Normatec and the Xbox, bring the Normatec. All right. Yeah. Trust me, you're going to need it. Stuff like that. When it comes to food, spices I'd bring over a lot. If I was cooking like chicken or steak, those actually go a long ways. One little tube can get you 2, 3, 4 weeks, however much you're using. Stuff like that goes a long way. Back in the day, it was like a sling box. Make sure that was connected for TV. Now you can go to YouTube TV, but in some countries you need maybe a VPN. I don't know if that's going to work. There's this cool thing that you can download that I had my last couple years on Amazon Fire Stick that I got like every channel in the world. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about that in the podcast, because but that was like $40. That was like $40 a month. Incredible. Yeah. Like every channel I can ever imagine, and like little things like that. Like I just remember I was like super homesick, but I'd wake up. I think after the first morning practice, I just throw the sling box on. I cook lunch. And remember Mike and Mike in the morning?
Yeah.
Mike and Mike would just come on as I got home from first practice, and just having them like in the background, I kind of felt like I was like at home a little bit. So yeah, that was probably the main thing. Maybe a little melatonin. Maybe a little melatonin too.
I think like you both you guys kind of hit on it. It was like sometimes like it's the small things that can kind of give you that little taste of home that can kind of take you a long way. Whether or not it's like certain spices, whether or not it's something that you want to watch, whether or not it's a movie, whether or not it's something, whatever that is, that can kind of give you that small take. Go ahead, Billy.
The T-Mobile plan is huge.
Yeah.
The
T-Mobile
plan. Yeah. Definitely got to shout out T-Mobile on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
T-Mobile, the
sponsor. Yeah.
They should have been sponsored for this. T-Mobile works everywhere. Whatever country you're in, it works. Yeah. It's 2G, but you can text and you can call.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, those things are like the small things that like you don't realize because you kind of take for granted being here. Being in college or being coming from the States. And then once you get there, I remember it was like ranch dressing or like little things like that. It was like you didn't have, or peanut butter, or like little things like that you didn't have that like would make the biggest difference just by going and I was like Kevin, like I would always bring like a bunch of snacks and I wouldn't eat them right away. But like every time like we have like a bad loss or I just need it.
Emotions.
Yeah, emotions. Mine was like Reese's cups. Like we didn't have Reese's cups, so I was just like anytime we had like a bad loss, I was just like, man, I gotta go to the stash and sit there.
Like comforting.
Yeah.
Like rationing Reese's cups.
Yeah, exactly. But I think those are like the most important things because like I said before, those go a long way. And they can help make your overseas experience a lot better. Whether or not it's something like as far as like Apple TV or Fire Stick or like I said a meal or something like that. And just to kind of plug in, Simplicity. You can go to their Instagram page and you can see the Simplicity Essentials, and they have our Amazon, shop where you can kind of see some of these different things that can kind of be helpful, moving forward. Like some of these little things that we had talked about, that can be and that can help make the world of difference for your overseas experience. Mine, I'm gonna kind of go back to a funny story. I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have a computer my first like 5 months overseas. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think I needed it. So so like my first 5 months, like I just went over there and I was like, I have no computer. I was like, what am I doing? Like all my teammates were like, you don't have a laptop, you don't have like I literally went over there with nothing. So I was just literally like just had like my little mobile phone. I had a BlackBerry at the time. And I just communicated through BlackBerry, but I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have Skype. I didn't have nothing. I had none of that stuff. It was just like my little BlackBerry, and that was it. So like those little things, I didn't understand. I didn't necessarily think it was important, but now it's like I couldn't imagine like not going overseas without like my iPad or my laptop or something like that. So.
And it's weird because there's little things that I've seen people like even like the things with the hotel door locks. I've seen a lot of people, overseas athletes, talk about, especially women. They're like they get the door locks because they're like, I have no idea who has the key to this apartment because there's been 10,000 people through it. So little things like that. If you are a person who's worried about who's coming in at night, which we all should be. So I think there's little things like that I've heard people bring impact, but that's like kind of like a fear thing. I just always looked at it for when the women talk to me about like, oh yeah, we always have it. So like little things like that could keep you feeling safer in this new environment. That's just my last.
I want to talk about now I think overseas basketball has become even more connected and even more because of social media. I think, a lot of times you can kind of see the different countries and you can see that there's a little bit more of, I guess you could say, open borders. Now there's people playing in Canada, there's people playing in Mexico, there's people playing in Puerto Rico, there's people playing in South America. You can go to Korea, the Asian market is open. The Australian market is open. There's all different type of markets in Europe. So I just want to kind of highlight and kind of pinpoint the different markets and kind of the expectations for those. And I'll start kind of like in North America, South America. Obviously, you have the Canadian market. So a lot of players, the Canadian market is going on right now. The league is usually kind of like more of like a spring summer league, similar to like the Puerto Rican league. So mostly the leagues that are kind of in the North American region are kind of during those times. And I think those are the ones that a lot of times what happens is that a lot of guys will either come from Australia or guys that are coming from, leagues that have shorter stints will kind of double up. What I mean double up is that they'll play 6 months in Australia, then they'll do 3 or 4 months in either Canada or Puerto Rico to kind of be closer to home, to kind of, subsidize, a larger paycheck. So those are usually kind of like the shorter month, leagues. Also Australia, some of the Korean leagues, some of the Asian leagues. The European leagues is usually where you can make your most money. So that's a lot of times why most people want to get there. It's your most opportunity to go from, like you said, you can go from maybe playing second or third division with one team, and then going up to the Euro League where there's some guys that are making, high 7 figures. So that's probably the market that like a lot of people want to go to. There's a lot of market where most people hone into because that's where you can make the most money, you can make the most exposure, most impact. But like I said, nowadays it seems like there's more markets available. So Kevin, I want you to kind of talk about, as far as like where were the best markets, for young players to kind of start at.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's always going to be a stepping stone leagues. There's different ones. Like Cyprus is a big one. It's like a little shady, but I know a lot of guys who got their start in Cyprus and then moved on to Greece and what have you, or Italy. So I know Germany, like the lower division Germany, or even like main division Germany. If you're a good enough player, like that's what's going to get you in the door. I always some people, and Kyle, you guys, both of you guys know this, playing in EuroLeague for so long. A lot of rookies, even very talented rookies, come in and they're like, "I want to play in EuroLeague," and you're just like, "It's not just on that. Like you got to be a
Yeah,
team. Like they have to see you in order to throw you on this team. They have to see how you adjust in Europe," and that's what I think. Like when we talk about the style of play, Europe, you got to be able to do everything. Like you can't just be flashy, you can't just be athletic, you can't just do certain things well. You got to be able to rebound, play defense, shoot the ball, know how to move without the ball. There's just so many nuances, and EuroLeague is, like you said, it's the second best league in the world. And you really, and we have all these comparisons now where they're talking about having NBA and EuroLeague kind of combine in some sense, and you're going to be surprised at how good these teams do versus NBA teams because it's just a different style of play. So I do think that the Europe system, getting your foot in the door in like Germany, Poland is a good starting place, and then just like some of those lower leagues, it's just carefully. Those lower leagues are where you're going to discover the nightmares, and I think that's where Billy, you talked about this. Like you're 10 years in, you're not worried about anything anymore. If
yeah,
someone's not paying you on time, that's like you have the leverage to be like, see ya. But these younger guys in these younger leagues, this is where it's a little scary. But you take that risk, take that chance, make sure you're doing your research, and get into a league. If you're not getting paid, obviously there's things that you have to do. But if you want to get your foot in the door, you're probably going to have to deal with shit for your first year, and that's just how it is. So. But I do think that in Europe, those are good leagues to get into. The NBL one in Australia, great
yeah,
league for young players to get into to explore the new NZB, the New Zealand Basketball League, and I think like Japan, they're really rising up. Like I don't see too
yeah.
many rookies in there, but that was a good rookie league before. Like, but now I mean, even the third division in Japan is hopping. So
Yeah, I think also for guys, if you know where you want to go and you do your research before, I always think if you want to play in the EuroLeague, tough to bounce around from continent to continent because I don't care if you go get 40 points a game in Venezuela, they don't care. They know what they like, and that doesn't really move the needle for you. Same thing. I mean, the G League's changed a little bit as of recently, but back in the day, I mean, G League did not matter at all. So that was never even like a second thought because I knew my eventual goals were to play in the EuroLeague, and the G League just wasn't going to move the needle at all. It's progressed a little bit. I'm still not sure as to how much it has. But then you're right though. Japan's really developed as of late,
Yeah.
but they really more so focus on the bigs.
mhm.
I honestly don't have too much experience with like Canada, Australia. I don't have much experience. All I know really is that league is much shorter, and I hear that everyone has a fantastic time down there. It's basically like America. So
Yeah,
I hear you're basically playing during their summer, right? So I
Yeah.
hear
facts.
everything's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
So, but yeah, as far as being in Europe, like you also gotta, understand this is where you need a good agent. It's like, even though it's, let's say it's second division Spain, it's better than a lot of first divisions, right? So you gotta really understand that, okay, 13 to 15 points a game in this league is going to translate different than 13, 15 points a game in this league. You just got to understand that's where you got to do your research to understand one, the type of player you are, but then what players have come out of what leagues, and what will that, how will that propel me and give me the momentum I need to get to where I want to go to.
yeah. I agree. I think it's like a conversation you need to have with your agent, but also a conversation you need to have with yourself. Where you think you want to go. Like I said, like there's way more opportunities. I think it was when we were coming around. start off. I mean, we can even go to the BAL, the basketball African League. I mean that's also somewhere where some players go and play. The Australian, like you said, the NBL, the NBL one is usually around this time. It's usually around like the spring summer months, and then during the year you have the NBL, the first division, which is usually there's a limit between Americans. It's usually about I think 2 to 3 foreigners on the team. That's also something we should also mention. Going to certain countries, you have to understand that certain countries have limitations as far as how many foreigners that you can have. So like versus going to like Germany, where Germany there's a lot more foreigners, and there's usually a lot more Americans that go to. Or if you go to Spain, where Spain there's usually I think there's two Americans, and that's why there's tend to have more guys with passports in those different situations. Or like you talk about the Asian markets with the Koreas, the Japans, or the Chinas. Those opportunities right now, those are probably the markets that are probably most booming, where you could probably make, if you're a veteran guy, you can probably go and kind of get the most, most money. And then, like you said, the starter ones are some of the ones that are kind of in the North and South America regions. But always Europe is going to be the place where you can get the most exposure and you can get the most money, and you can kind of get the most opportunity for yourself. And it's the best way to rise. If you play in the NBL and you play in some of these other places, you can kind of get capped out at a certain number. But if you play in EuroLeague, like I said before, you can go from 1 year, having a good year and making a certain amount of money to the next year, almost like 2xing or 3xing your salary, within a 2-year process. So that's just something like, if you guys want to, or people that are listening want to see, we'll have Simplicity, we'll have a map, kind of like a heat map that kind of show different regions and different areas where, it'll make where you want to go in your pathway in your career, and so that way you can have that most knowledge. Now I want to talk about, some questions, before we get out of here. And a lot of these questions are questions that you kind of have, off the court. The first question, I'm going to give it to you, Billy. Can you give me an example of what is your first WTF moment, being overseas for the first time?
Where do I start? Man, there's so many. There's so many. I mean, I came out. That coach who said he wasn't going to play me because he couldn't speak to me. He's from a small village. Come out of practice one day. He's kind of like, you see his back, and he's kind of like digging in his trunk. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? And he turns around and he's selling like cold cuts and like meat to the players as they walk out. And I'm like, dude, come on.
That's a new one.
I mean, I have some stories,
That's
man. Like seriously, like next year, I go to my apartment, right? And let's just say, all right, the team had a player actually that passed away in the team, right? Like he passed away like late May. I walk in the apartment, right? And I'm like, this is early August. This is 3 months later. I walk in the apartment, and the apartment looks cool. Everything looks good. And I'm like, I'm looking at the mattress and everything. I'm like, I remember I'm looking through the apartment. I'm like, hey, this isn't where he didn't live here, did he? Because I knew he died in this apartment. And they're like, yes, he did. And I'm like, I asked them, I go, did you change that mattress? No, they didn't. They didn't change the mattress. The mattress they wanted me to sleep in is the mattress he died in 3 months later. Wild. So I slept in there and I slept with music on, until I made them switch that mattress. I mean, there's a lot, man. There's a lot, from like, the war in Russia to like get my family out of there, to the whole COVID thing, to there's too many. But I think my coach selling cold cuts out of his trunk was probably my first one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna give you the opportunity to speak, Kev. I mean, you wrote a whole book about about different moments. So can you share a couple of those?
Well, I started my book with the exposure camp. I walked in. I mean, if you haven't read my book, like I walked in on an orgy. So like at an exposure camp, I was poor. Like I grew up. My parents were both teachers. Like we didn't have any money. So like they were like, you can either buy a hotel room or you can share. I was like, share. So I just shared it. I didn't go back to the room at all. I go back at like 10 o'clock at night, and there's like just a whole lot of action going on. A bunch of dudes in there, a bunch of girls in there, like no clothes, and like my stupid ass like walks in like, hey guys, like what is happening in here? So like my awkwardness. So that was crazy. I remember Poland, we went in, And like this is my first experience overseas. I'm like going through, we're like on the court and we're stretching, and he's like, all right, let's go warm up. And they start running, and they ran right out the door to a field across the street and just started running around there. I was like, is someone coming into the gym? Like, why couldn't we do this? And like, why can't we run around the court? And they're like, no, we run around this, like, just a field. It was just a big green field, and we just ran around it. I'm like, that was the weirdest thing I've ever been a part of. Like, why couldn't we just do it inside? But it's just like, I feel like there's like a mental test with everything they do. They're just like, oh, you want to run out here in like 20 degrees. You're like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing today. So, I mean, like I said, I mean, there's so many ridiculous things that happen, but each one is just such a good story.
I missed 2 weeks, sprained my ankle running in the forest during the season. Just in like fell into like a little like hole, sprained my ankle out 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's just, but when you tell people back home, hey, this is why I'm out 2 weeks, they're looking at you like, wait, what? You're running outside in a forest during the season?
Like yelling at you like you did something wrong.
Yeah, you did something wrong.
Trust me, I didn't want to. It had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The next question I have: what are some of the things that you can do to make the city feel more like home? For me, this is always my biggest thing and my biggest advice to players is that, you know, get out of your apartment. A lot of times, you know, us as American players, we just sit there and we're on our PlayStation, on our Xbox or whatever, and we're not actually getting out of our apartments and exploring, you know, the culture or exploring what's around us. So for me, it's like the first thing I always do was like I always would reach out to like the domestic players, the players that were from there, and I would just like hang out with them. You know, I would go do what they would do. I would go to restaurants. I would go to coffee houses. I would just hang out with them and like just go do different things they would do. And second, on my off days, like I would just go explore. I would just go walk around. I would just go to a museum. I would go to, like I said, a coffee house. I would kind of look up and kind of see where's the best places to go. And the third advice I always give to guys is try to learn the language. Like even a little bit will go a long way. It's a little bit, and it'll go a long way with the people on your team because they know that you really care, that you're really trying to embrace the culture. The people that are around surrounding the city, they'll really know that you care, and also it'll help you out. It'll help you just kind of get by, you know, help you get by and help you kind of get understanding. So I'm gonna start with you, Billy, this time. What are some of the things that you can do off the court that can make your city, from you or for your family, feel more like home?
I think find your spots, your coffee shops, your restaurants, your go-tos. Make connections with the people who work there. Hopefully, they
Yeah.
speak just a tiny sliver of English, or you just kind of do the sign language type thing. You point at things in the menu. You guys know how it works. You get pretty good at that. But find your spots, that like your go-to spots, your comfort foods, your coffee spots. Get out of the apartment. Don't just go back and sit in the apartment. Like off days, go for a long walk through the city, throw some music on, throw a podcast on, and just be out for the entire morning on an off day. Don't get back to like early afternoon. So like things like that, just like stay proactive. And then when you do go back to the house, like I always like get into like cooking and stuff like that. So like go to the local farmers market or something like that. I don't know, make something extravagant. I got nothing else to do. So like just do something like that. But yeah, last thing you should definitely do is like don't just go sit in your apartment and play video games all day and think about things you're missing. Like that's not gonna help.
I think like culturally too, when you start exploring like that's one thing that not a lot of rookies know, that the more you do, the more you adhere yourself to the team and the more that you're willing to go out of your comfort zone to acclimate yourself to the teammates, to your owners, to the language, to the culture, to everything around you, it's going to make you more employable. So I think getting out, like you guys have said, get out, explore, start seeing everything. Don't just lock yourself away. I mean, I used to set up the bedroom, like, because there was always a bedroom. So I used to set up the bedroom and I put up like the notes and stuff that I would bring, like a note from my dad when I was like getting recruited, like the man in the arena, like the different things that would inspired me. I would put and I would hang them by my bed, and that would be. It wasn't like rock. I wasn't ripping down pictures, but it was just like more like the mentality of just trying to make sure that mentally I saw that and those words were there to remind me. And yeah, get out. Do not sit in your apartment. It's and trust me, like even now, we're all done. Like so, all we have is the memories, and those memories that you're gonna have, like that everyone else had too. Going to a coffee shop in Rome. I mean, it's amazing. It's such a great experience, and Not many people in this world are able to do that. So like savor those memories and make them as many as you can.
Yeah, and I was just in Milan, and one of the things I was thinking about was I wish I would have, and I did a lot, but it's like like I wish I would have took more opportunity to do more, because now that we're in the States, it's like it's not like you can just go see the Duomo or see the Coliseum or do these different things or go get a focaccia, go do these different things like that you were doing when you were there. So understand like this is a small short amount of time that you're there, but you're in places that a lot of times that like people save up their whole entire lives to visit for 3 4 5 days, but you're living there. So it's like really good opportunity to like really get out a chance to like experience it and make, like I said, like you meet people, like if you meet people and you build relationships and you build memories, like those things can last you for the rest of your lives. And like I said, all of us are three retired guys, and I think like if we had the opportunity to go overseas and for a week or two, we'd be like, let's go, like I'm ready to go right now. So
Yeah. I mean, my wife is just like, well, that's the like trip. She's just like, I want to go to Greece. My wife is Greek. I mean, she's not from Greece, but like her dad is from Greece. But like, she's just like, I want to go back, and it's just like, all right. I mean, you want me to go like Olympiacos or something? Because like that's like a $10,000 trip. I guess we're doing this now, like in the middle of things with kids. It's probably 20
yeah,
grand, but sure. Like, let me.
tad bit expensive, tad bit more expensive.
It's so much easier when you're just like,
Yeah.
hey, can I come play for you? I'll promise I won't break anything. Just get me over there. My wife won't eat much.
What is the best advice that you've received that's directly impacted your career? I'll start with you, Kevin.
Um, I think the best advice that I ever received was from my coach, my first coach in the G League. He was like, "You're not going to make the NBA. You're not going to play. You're not going to make the NBA if you're like trying to score 28 points, like get 10 rebounds." He's like, they have guys that can do that. However, if you go out and you become a specialist at something, you could go far in this game. So I just rebounded the shit out of the ball, and I was like, no one's going to out rebound me. And one of the top rebounders in the D League, always one of the top rebounders overseas. And I think that is something, especially in overseas, if you have a skill that you are really, really good at, and you could do other things really well, you're going to have a space, because I think it's just there's guys that can drop 40, but like you're not going to EuroLeague. I mean, all you guys could all drop 40 every single night. However, you weren't dropping 40 every night, so you have to have a little bit of humbleness to separate your ego and just be able to go out and perform what role that they give you. It will help you out a lot. So I think that was my best advice to become just a crazy rebounding machine.
I think for me, it was just win, like just how important winning is. Like you said it, you hit the nail on the head. It's like you scoring, going out there scoring 40 a night, and you're losing. That doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
If you want to make the EuroLeague, you got to fit. You're a piece of a puzzle. Like you're not going to be making 8 to 9 dribbles and then getting to whatever shot you want to get to. Like that's not gonna work. So learning and understanding how valuable winning is, and then doing all the little things to ensure that. Like I started to understand that it wasn't always about points. So if we knew, that they were going to hard hedge me and Kyle sent me a pick and roll, I might run 8 straight pick and rolls just to hit Kyle on the short roll, so then Kyle makes the play. It doesn't show up in the box score,
Yeah.
but you got the advantage. If you can create the advantage, that's all they can ask from you, right? And so it's understanding that it's not always about, what the box score says, your points, your rebounds, all that stuff. It was about winning, and for me, usually it was like, can you defend? I was a smaller guy at the 2. It's like I used to have like that little man syndrome because, and Kyle knows this. I used to get switched on, like I used to get picked on and get switched. Like late in games, you're switching everything. So like if I'm guarding the post, probably why my elbows are so screwed up, I used to try and feel like I can guard Kyle. I can guard these big dudes. I'm like, no, I got him. I got him.
We don't need a trap. We don't need a trap.
No, I got this. Meanwhile, I can't bend my elbow anymore. But it wasn't a proper business decision. The intentions were there, right? Like who wants to play defense on a big guy like that, right? The intentions were there, but just trying to do all like the very little things and understanding it's not about you, it's about winning. And 6 points per game and winning a championship is going to make you way more money than scoring 18 a game and getting relegated. So just understand the kind of the formula of how you can go make a lot of money.
Yeah, I will echo that. I'm gonna kind of give three advice that I've got. I'm gonna talk about the first thing you said. It's not about points. It's not about scoring. It's not about stats. Obviously, the stats and the scoring is what gets you there. It's what gets you the attention. But that's not necessarily things that's going to keep you there and give you the opportunity to maximize your career and make the most money possible. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want to do, right? We want to try to win as much as we can, but also try to bank as much as we can, so we can, enjoy whatever the next part of our lives are. So the advice I got was from Andrea Chinchiti, who was my first coach, and he basically told me, he was like, look at Mike Batiste, and I tell this story all the time. Like Mike Batiste at the time was getting paid like 2.5 or $3 million, and you look at his stat line, and he was averaging like 11 points and like 6 rebounds. But he was like, every time he stepped on the floor, he made a difference. And he was at the time, people thought, considered like, one of the winningest players because they had won so many titles with Panathinaikos. And he was like, he impacts winning. So he was like, how can you impact winning? If you impact winning, then you're always going to have a job no matter what. So he was like, he broke that down to me. And then from that moment forward, like the style that I play, how I play definitely changed. And, I always looked at like, well, how can I impact winning? If I can impact winning, then I'm always going to be employed. I'm always going to have the best opportunities to play, on the best teams possible. The second thing I would say is, we talk about a lot on this podcast or this webinar about the great lives you could possibly live off the floor. But the thing that you have to do is that you still have to keep the main thing, because you're living in Europe, and sometimes you can kind of lose sight of what your purpose is there. Your purpose there is to hoop and play basketball. So it's like, you have the opportunity to work. So it's like, continue to put the work in, continue to put the grind in. Just because you're living in these great cities or these great environments or whatever, you can go to these cafes or, some places that you go to. I mean, you can go out every single night, or you can go different places if you're playing in Greece or you're playing in Milan or you're playing in these different places. But you have to focus on and keep the main thing. And I think that sometimes a lot of guys lose sight of that. They go over there and they're just excited that they're professionals, but they forget that what took them to get them there, and also, what's going to do the things that's going to keep them there. And the third advice that I got was, it's always the fear of missing out. When you're overseas, you're always looking on, especially nowadays, you're looking on social media, you're looking on Instagram, and you're like, oh, my boy back home is doing this. My friend back home is at this concert. I'm missing this. I'm missing that. I'm missing that. Like, you just got to be where your feet at, be where your toes at, and kind of stay in the moment, kind of stay where you're at. Because by the time you get home, 9 times out of 10, the same people that you think you're missing out are still doing the same things, going to the same places, hanging out the same whatever. But like, if you sit there and, like I said, lose sight, and you're always worried about what's happening at home, then you lose sight what's in front of you, and then you lose out the opportunity that's in front of you. So I think those are always the three that I always kind of tell young players.
No, I like that's great advice. I also, that's a really good piece that I think a lot of people, especially in the social media era, like everyone posts their wins on social media. So you don't see the full picture, but when you're back home, when you're overseas and everything's back home, like you think you really are missing everything. And then you talk to your friends and you're like, what did you do? You're like, oh, we just sat around. Like, there's no one's doing anything. Like, they're doing nothing. Like, whatever they're doing is pales in comparison to what we're doing. And I think that's where, as opposed to like, that was a mindset shift I'd have, like, as opposed to worrying about what's going on back here, like, focus on what's going on here and screw them. Like, I will see them again. They'll be fine. They're doing nothing. Like, I'm the most, like, this is going to sound egotistical, but like, I'm the reason the group is fun. Like, I'm not here, so whatever you guys are doing, you're not nearly as fun. So you guys don't even worry about it. So I think that was just shifting your mindset. That's a really good point of not really worried about what's going on back home. Don't really follow all that stuff too much. Everyone has fun. Everyone's having a good time. Focus on your good time. It's a really good time.
And develop routines. Like, don't be. And it's hard to not stay up late at night and talk to everyone till 3 or 4 in the morning, because that becomes kind of like a norm. That was some of my early years. Staying up to 2, 3 was not like
Regular.
just a regular thing.
Yeah.
And I think what happened in my career that helped me to consistently get better is I started developing routines and actually like taking care of myself more. Doing all the little things, like getting to the gym an hour before, like, not walking in, like guys walk into practice like 5 minutes before. It's like, one, you're not helping yourself. Two, like everyone sees you're this happening. So like just because it says practice is 10 to 12 doesn't mean you're there at 9:55 and you leave at 12:05. So be a professional, and not only is it so everyone else sees it, but it's for yourself. Like understand your body, like understand like if you want to make it to the EuroLeague, like it's tough. Like there's hundreds and hundreds of teams playing in Europe. There's only that's what people in America obviously don't understand. There's only 18 teams in the EuroLeague, and you got to do all the little things. You got to do all the prehab stuff. You got to do all the mobilization stuff. You got to do the rehab stuff. You got to do all of that stuff to just gain an extra inch and just to be that consistent. Because that's what it comes down to. Can you be consistent? Because coaches will get over you when you have 25 points one game, but you have 2 points the next game. So find out how to be consistent, and that kind of stems from your routine.
Last two questions, and we'll end this webinar. Question I have for you, Kev, is if you can go back to your first year overseas, is there something that you would have done different?
Yes. So my first like full season overseas was in Australia. So it was a great league. Kind of the same thing. I wish I knew kind of like, and this is the cool thing about this conversation. I mean, Billy and I, this is like our first, I know who he is, but this is our first conversation, Kyle. We haven't talked in like the past few months. It's like, but we're all saying kind of the similar things because even though this wasn't planned, it's just how I think it's pretty cool to give advice. So when I look back at my first year, I would have probably, it was more, I was like almost culture shock because I was in Australia. There was a lot of distractions. I had a good year because it was so fun, but I think the thing I would have done is I wouldn't have pushed for more money. I could have stayed in Australia. I ended up going to South Korea. I think like the decision to chase the money when I could have chased the situation, that was my biggest regret after that first year because I chased the money and I did not chase the situation. And the situation would have been so much better for me and it could have taken my career in a very different path. However, things are, you make those decisions. So I think that was something that if I chose to stay in Australia, I think I would have done that. It was just a more logistics of my first year, not really like just thinking that I'm going to chase the money as opposed to actually logically looking through and figuring out the next step as opposed to just who's going to pay me the most.
Yeah, I think like that's like probably because you didn't know, right? You probably just like I'm just going to chase the biggest check, but like you said before, like if you probably would have had these opportunities or these conversations, then like probably somebody would have told you like, hey, this is a great situation, and you would have had opportunity to be in Australia for the rest of your career. So like I echo that. I think like you said before, it's like sometimes it's not all about chasing the money. It's all about how you are going to set up your next job, your next opportunity to maximize that moving forward.
And it's funny, like you see those. We all know those guys who live in Australia now. Like we all know like that American who lives in Australia. And you talk to them on the phone, and they like say, you're like, get out, and you're like, what, dude? You're in Michigan. Like, why are you talking? But it's just like how it is. But that's what happens. You go overseas and you become so entrenched in that lifestyle. That's what I always said. I was like, man, I could have been living there for the rest of my life. But whatever.
What about you, Billy?
I think probably be a better problem solver instead of just feeling bad for myself and being angry and depressed at the situation. Like, I think the rookie in me was just like, all right, screw this. Like, I'm just, just check off the days and just literally count the days starting from, 200 down to like, all right, I'm going home this day. I think it would have been probably just like work on my game a little bit more. Even, I think I kind of was so caught up in my own feelings that I almost like resented basketball. Basketball can become really like not fun because it wasn't what I grown up playing. Like I was like, all right, what is this game? This is not, I was getting yelled at for the craziest things. I'm like, wow, like I was just the whipping boy, right? So I'm getting yelled at for everything. So instead of just dwelling on that, maybe just saying forget that and focus on me and how could it make me better. I'm still thankful for it because it made me stronger for all the other problems that came in my career. I resorted back to that and I was like, all right, that was worse than this. So, but I think I wish I developed a routine quicker in my career than when I did. I think it would have helped me earlier, I think, mentally, and then, obviously, physically as well.
Yeah, I echo that. I think the routine. I think if I would have developed a routine a lot earlier in my career, I think it would have helped me out a lot more. So I think like that, like, well, I
Hey
think that's
Kyle, you did all
fantastic.
right for yourself, man. All right,
I mean,
you at least you got it. All right,
Look,
geez, how
that
many? How
created
many
your
tournaments?
overseas
6, 7. My
athlete of all
goodness.
I'm just saying, man. You know what I mean? It could be a little bit greedy, a little bit selfish. Now, that was a perfect segue because we talk about. I want to ask you guys in closing. We talk about like some of the negatives, but there's also a lot of positives about playing overseas, right? So I want to ask you both. What is your best memory about playing overseas basketball?
I think that, like you said, that Billy was talking about winning. I think that was something that really resonated. Going overseas, like I was a Monmouth University, small Division 1. I was a late bloomer. I didn't really get muscle until like my senior year in college. I just really developed late, and by the time I hit pro, I was still kind of like in that college level, like, okay, get your body right. Cause I was building on sand. And I think I had to that G League taught me to start building on something more, solid ground. And I think that was really what took me along. So I think the best aspect or the best memories I have uh, were just like the fact that I was able to go to another country and be an all-star and win a championship and do things that I didn't really get the chance to do here.
Mm-hmm.
I was never really the all-star at Monmouth. Like I was, first team all conference, but I wasn't the MVP. Like things like that. When I went overseas and started getting accolades for my performance, I think that was one of the things that was my best memory because it kind of proved to myself that it was all worth it and that I deserved to be there, and that was really big for me because I mean, Billy talked about it, like your mentality those first few years, you're like frail, you're nervous, you're like, am I going to get cut? Am I going? And you almost basketball becomes secondary. So I think having the ability to concentrate, lock in, and actually be successful was something I'm really proud of myself. That was my biggest, happiest memory overseas is my mindset developing me into a better human being than I am now, hopefully. I can ask my wife that. I'm not sure.
What about you, Billy?
I think it was probably my first year in Serbia, where it's probably my first time on a bigger team, and everyone knows how passionate the fans are, how big the club was. So I came in there truly as an unknown, and it was a great place for me to go because the coach wanted me to. And I came from a small Turkish club, right to Red Star. No one knew about me, and so I had to win over my team, my fans, all of this. And it was really like a big test for me. And I've heard stories that, like, obviously if you don't play well, they'll replace you right away. Fans can turn on you really quick. So I think I was really nervous about it early on, but kind of like the way it progressed, and it's like I just remember, we won the Adriatic League. I was able to, that was a huge moment for me because we qualified for the Euro League. I remember it was like game 5. It was a do or die. We had a couple of do or die games. So we had a do or die game against Paducnos at home, and I just remember, there were so many fans at the game, and I was taking a taxi to the game because my wife had the car, and I remember I was going to be late because there's so many fans there. So I got out of the taxi. I remember I walked like probably like a half mile to the gym, and I was just been being bombarded by fans because it was a home game. So it was like everyone's like, "Let's go, let's go!" And as I'm walking closer to the gym, you can hear the fans already in the gym. It was game 5. And we beat them by like 50 just because the place was so crazy. And then obviously you're playing in like 6 leagues, right? So after, I was able to win MVP of that league. So we got into the Euro League, which is great. But then obviously job's not finished. You got to play the Serbian League, right? So I just remember, we beat Partizan. I was able to make a shot at the buzzer against Partizan. And it just kind of like capped off a year. I remember I had to go home right away. I was leaving like that day, so we went downtown to called Kalamagdan, where that castle is, where the basketball court is, and everyone celebrated. And I remember it was probably like midnight. I had like a 6 a.m. flight to go home. I had something I had to get back to, and so I remember I walked probably like, again, like when you walk in Europe, because everyone's walking. People in America don't understand how much people walk. So it was, let's say it was like a 1.5 mile, 2 mile walk to my apartment, which felt like nothing. I had my uniform. I had my I had my trophy in my hand. I had a medal, and I remember I was just walking home, and all the fans were around me. I stopped and got like a ton, like a huge thing of ice cream, like a big waffle cone. It was still open, so I'm just eating this ice cream. I had a trophy in my hand, and it was just like, thinking back to the days in Lithuania where I was like going through it. Just that walk home to like knowing that, just got a contract extension for next year, like the previous day, and I was gonna play in the EuroLeague. It was just like, damn, like everything was worth it. You know what I mean? Just like that ice cream never tasted so good, and like it was something that like I'll never forget that walk back home because there were so many fans there. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Hey man, on that note, we're going to end this webinar. Like, like it doesn't get much better than that. Like I said before, we went over a lot of different things. We talked about the highs and the lows. Started out talking about some of the red flags, but ended it the right way. Talking about like some of the beautiful moments and some of the best experiences that you can have. All three of us, on this call, have experienced so many great moments and so many beautiful memories that that, like you said, you see the picture behind Billy, right now, like that we still want to relive and that we still cherish to this day. And for you guys watching, our job now is to help you guys make those memories and help you be able to create those memories together. So just want to say thank you for everybody that watched. On behalf of Simplicity Basketball, I want to thank Kevin. I want to thank Billy for taking the time to being on this webinar and allowing us to share some knowledge and give some advice to the next generation of overseas athletes. If you missed joining in, this webinar will be posted on Simplicity Basketball's website. Keep on the lookout for the next webinars coming soon. And we thank you guys again. Take care. And if you have any questions, please reach out. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.